What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Let's Chat number 3. Time off from gigs. The best thing for my playing in years? All right, everybody, welcome to Let's Chat, a regularly reoccurring segment where we talk about anything and everything music related at all. Nothing in particular, just music related chats. Leave a comment below on a subject that you'd like to hear us talk about during Let's Chat. Let's Chat number 3, time off from gigs, the best thing for my playing in years. Well, as we know, everybody, live gigs have kind of disappeared in the midst of this pandemic, which is still kind of going on. Venues are allowed to operate and have live music, but they have to operate at half capacity. When that happens, especially for an independent musician like myself, that's a working class musician that normally plays small bars, pubs, restaurants, clubs, nightclubs, what have you, that are already small enough venues as it is. Now, I play solo pretty much all the time. I do a show with my loop station, which for a one-man act, I take up a lot more space than your average solo act. Most solo acts, person with a microphone and an acoustic guitar, sitting there, powered mixer, single speaker, fine. Me, I have 2 pedal boards, one which has my loop station, one which has my harmonizer, bunch of other pedals to control switches throughout all that. Bass guitar on a stand-up stand with a electronic drum pad. I take up a lot of space. So, with a lot of the clubs only being able to go at 50% capacity, they're already small clubs as it is. They have to do the social distancing. That takes away a lot of the floor space from any one of these clubs. So even though technically they are allowed to have people inside, and technically they are allowed to have live music, for somebody like me to come in, I'm taking up what could potentially be an 8-seat table from all the space that I'm taking up. I take money out of the venue. That 8-seat table for a family of 8 or a party of 8, they put money into the venue. So, therefore, I'm not really gigging at all. Throughout this pandemic, from the beginning of March up until the shooting of this video, which is late October, I've done maybe 3 shows. That's because where I live, the pandemic only got into stage 3, where you're allowed to have patios and live music on there, just at the very end of patio season. So I've done a whole whopping 3 shows. So there hasn't been a lot of gigs, but back to the main subject at hand, how, in a certain sense, this is one of my best things for my playing in years. I'm not a full-time musician anymore and haven't been for a while. I was a full-time musician for about 20 years. Up until my mid-30s, that's all I did was play music for a living. I toured, I gave music lessons, I gigged full-time. That's all that I did. But these days, for the last decade, I've got a day job as well, too. Now, that being said, before pandemic, I would still be gigging out every weekend, sometimes Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the odd Thursday gig, but that would add at least a good 30 hours to my week. So between my day job and gigging out regularly, I was going a good 70 hours a week. That's, drive, setup, tear down, the gig itself, being on the phone with club owners and whatnot, calling them for gigs, emailing, getting dates together, doing bookings, all of the stuff that's involved with playing. At least a good 30 hours a week, even though primarily I'm a weekend warrior, a little more than a weekend warrior. Doesn't exactly leave a lot of time for practice. You want to get that one thing, what do people call that? I used to do it a lot when I was younger. Oh yeah, sleep. Yeah, especially if you want to get some sleep. So there's not exactly a lot of time left over for practicing. But now that the pandemic hit and there's no gigs, well, I found 2 things to occupy my time to get me up to that nice extra 30 hours a week of working on things. Doing this, YouTube, And especially since I suck at it so bad right now with editing videos and whatnot, takes up a good amount of time and practicing. I am a guitar player and a bass player primarily. I play both. And due to this pandemic and having enough time, it's allowed me time to really dig in and practice, kind of get out of the rut that I was in. I learned 2 techniques that I'd always put off on guitar and on bass that I've always wanted to learn. I learned how to sweep pick on electric guitar, and I learned the double thumb on bass. I'm by no means a master at any of them, but from the time that I started until now, which is only a few months really, I couldn't do either of those techniques whatsoever. But having enough time gives me enough time where I can just sit down and woodshed. Just go through the motions for hours and hours, sitting in front of the TV where I'd normally be at a gig, or on the phone, booking clubs, booking dates, doing whatever. I'd be sitting on the sofa, watching a video with my guitar or my bass acoustically, not plugged in, running through the licks, running through the riffs, practicing. I made it a point to, as much as possible, soak up that time with music-related things. 1, to keep my sanity, and then 2, to actually improve, learn some new skills during all this. And it's actually been fantastic. I can sweep pick, not great. I'm not a master of that or the double thumb, but wow, is it fun. Playing is so much more fun. It's helping to get me out of my rut. For my bass playing and my guitar playing, I'm coming up with so many different ideas and patterns because of that and learning that. It's really helped to get me out of my rut. Absolutely. When I was gigging all the time, I'd have my hands on a guitar and a bass at each one of my gigs because of the Loop Station show. But it's not the same. It's live gig experience, which is very important, which I've already been doing for 30 years. I've got enough of it. But almost as important, if not yet more important, equally important, I don't know, is the at-home practice time. When you're not performing, where you actually need to get and delve down into a new technique, which you're going to suck at first, which you're not going to execute perfectly, and just be able to have that time to woodshed on said new technique. So as much as this lockdown has completely been absolutely horrible, I've done my best to make lemonade out of lemons. I've done the best with what was dealt to me. Don't get me wrong. I'm by no means saying that what happened with everything was a good thing. I'm just saying I did everything I could to occupy my time, help keep my sanity, be as productive as possible, learn new skills, both this YouTube thing, never really did this before that, and to learn a new technique on both guitar and bass guitar. So, to get yourself out of any rut, maybe sometimes the thing that was affecting you being in a practicing rut with your playing was maybe the same thing as me, time. If there's something else that you were doing that's been taking up a lot of your time, maybe cut that out. Maybe, if you watch television for 2 or 3 hours a night, well, want to get out of your practicing rut? Want to get out of your playing rut? Don't watch TV for 2 hours a night. Maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes. So each night, you get yourself another hour and 15 minutes of that extra practice time. There you go. It can come from somewhere. For me, it was hard for the practice time to come from somewhere when I was already doing about 70 hours a week. Yeah, not much time for anything else, like, a life outside of working 2 jobs. For anybody else there too, there's always something that you might be able to do unless you're working a stupid amount of hours a week like I was, where you just have to do that and do whatever daily chores that you do. #adulting, And really, it's been fantastic for my playing. I'm just loving having these new 2 techniques underneath me. They're not dominated yet. They still need a lot of work. I got to learn several different patterns, but it's done so much for my playing. I feel so much more that's come out from my solos on bass guitar or electric guitar. So many more options. Just loving it. So that about does it for Let's Chat number 3, time off from gigs, the best thing for my playing in years. Again, everybody, leave a comment below on a subject that you'd like to hear us talk about on Let's Chat. Thanks for checking out this video. Do what makes you happy.